Welcome back into the Dynasty Dumpster Fire podcast. This is your host, Tanner, and I'm joined today by Marty, my not official co-host, but the guy that's always on here with me every single week. Marty, how are you feeling heading into NFL Week 6 here?
No, thank you for having me. No, I appreciate like always. I guess eventually we do have to make this official.
Yeah, I mean, eventually we might just have to make this a two-man operation, but I'd have to get you on the production train a little bit here and teach you about that part of this. But for now, you are my recurring guest, and hopefully, I plan to get on some other people here eventually. I've pitched the idea and have some interest, so like I said in the intro, we are heading into week 6 of the NFL season. So crazy to think about the fact that we are about a third of the way through. So at this point, we have some better understanding of lots of different things that we didn't necessarily know in the beginning of the Dynasty season and the NFL season. So, for example, we know uh, a little bit more information to feel a little bit more convicted one way or another on a player, which is why today we are going to go over a couple of buys and sells that we each have based on their current perceived dynasty value. So the idea is we'll both have one buy and one sell, and then if you have any other kind of additional honorable mentions or kind of sleeper buys or extra sells to throw in there, that's what we're going to do. So how do you feel about that idea there, Marty?
Let's rock and roll, dude.
So the reason we wanted to do this is number one, we haven't done it in a while, but number two, like I said, we have a lot more information now, so you can kind of have a direction for your team at this point. So we'll try to preface to say maybe if if we would buy or sell on a contender rebuilder type of thing. What type of team we would maybe try to target this player on or try to move this player off of, that type of thing. But I guess we'll start with the buys. And the buy that I have is somebody who I think I probably should have called maybe a week earlier, but it's a guy I've had my eye on since the beginning of the first couple weeks of the season, and that's rookie running back for the Tennessee Titans, TyJay Spears. So TyJay Spears came out of the gate with 54% of the snaps the very first week. That didn't amount to much, but it amounted to 7 opportunities. And for a guy that wasn't getting much attention, a guy that was written off because of his situation behind Derrick Henry and some of his previous health concerns, it was kind of a little bit promising. Fast forward to week 6 or week 4, I'm sorry, week 4 and 5, and his snap share has continued to stay right around that 53 to 54% mark, but his opportunities have risen relatively significantly to the point where he is almost splitting 50-50 the work with Derrick Henry, which is something that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. So week 5 had 34 yards, got his first touchdown. So he was used on a kind of a sweep within the red zone, I believe, which is a pretty big deal for a rookie running back. He's also used heavily in the receiving game, had 5 targets, 4 targets, at least 4 targets in every game this year except for week 2. And last week that amounted to 35 yards in the receiving game. So he's clearly a capable back on both fronts. And I think is a guy that you could target on either type of team. If you're a rebuilder, a contender, if you're a rebuilder, stash him. He's 22 years old. He's a rookie. He should grow in value. If you're a contender, I think he might get to the point here in the next couple of weeks where he's flex worthy with the way that the usage is trending. So what do you think of TyJay Spears, Marty? Have you formulated any opinion on him so far?
I like him. Watching him in real lifetime, it's pretty cool. I typically get to see him on Red Zone, so it's been very impressive seeing him sneak his way into the end zone. Initially, I thought he was a touchdown dependent player, but he seems to be more than just that.
Yeah, and he's again, like I said, there's a lot of talk that Derrick Henry might be on the move. I don't know how true that is, but there are some trade rumors going on there. Um, there's always a chance that he could decline in health, being as old as he is, right? His performance this year has not been close to, what you would hope for with Derrick Henry. He's still been good, but not as consistent as he usually would be in the past. But again, 16 total opportunities for Henry last week, and that would be 11 for Spears. So I think Spears is on the climb and is a guy that I would be trying to buy anywhere that I could for if you could get him for a perceived mid to early 24 second, I think that's a great deal. Um, Probably wouldn't pay much more than that, but there would also be a couple of running backs that I'd be willing to kind of tear down off of, depending on my team structure, to also get a hold of him. So a guy like Zach Charbonnet, uh, I would give straight up for TyJay Spears. How do you feel about that? They're right beside each other on keep trade cut. Is there one you prefer to
No,
the other?
no, they're both good. I believe Spears is more than just a handcuff at this point, so he has, in my opinion, unwritten value unlike Charbonnet does.
Yeah, Charbonnet does seem only to be a handcuff. They're not really using him a lot. Um, I would, with the usage and the opportunity and the type of offense that both these players on, I would also trade down a couple of spots off of Javonte Williams and maybe try to pick up a pick off of Tyjae Spears as well. Maybe try to get a second, or probably not a second, maybe try to get a third or a fourth on top, just some kind of sweetener, because they're about being used the same way. And with how reactionary, just something else I wanted to tell you real quick, because you'll think this is interesting, with how reactionary the Dynasty community is, Tyjae Spears is now ahead of Ramondre Stevenson in the Dynasty running back rankings. So Ramondre's at RB 25. So he's a guy that is falling very, very quickly. Not to get off topic, though. So would you pay a second for Tyjae Spears?
I would, but if I was the owner of him, I would ask for a little bit more just because of
Mm-hmm.
the unknown. And sometimes that's what sells, that hope. Just, a lot of things are like that.
Yeah, I'm not selling. I have him in one spot. I acquired him as kind of a throw-in deal, and I've been inquired. Two people have asked me for him. 25 second was the offer both times, and it's not something that I think is uh, something I'd be interested in acquiring or selling for that price. So um, that's Tyjae Spears. That's my dynasty buy number one. Marty, who go ahead and start off with your buy there.
Yeah, dude. So I have a different, position. I was more with the wide receiver, and for my buy was Garrett Wilson. I know he's been on the fall and is currently wide receiver 8 on Dynasty. But even with that fall and that value, still in the top 10, it's still not a bad number. Last year he had monstrous numbers and he had the same quarterback situation. However, I do believe we've seen some improvement and some personal development and accountability on the quarterback's end. I know his value climbed tremendously because of Aaron Rodgers, but even without him, like I said earlier in our other series, I believe he's become a coach and a mentor type of role, and he's been involved in a different capacity. He's currently about a third of his fantasy point value of last season at 178. And even with 5 out of the 17 games he played last year, for what we really focus on here in Dynasty, the numbers aren't bad. 53.9 is where he stands, and that's a third of his production from last year. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. Um, if I mean, obviously they got to need some improvement in their offense, and obviously if he gets touchdowns and continues to do that more and more regularly and can get some big yardage play, he'll have relevancy again. But even for what he is, I think he's a safe purchase with a high ceiling. Right now, I wouldn't say it's much, but again, just like you would with Spears, it's just buying on for that spike. Once that spike comes, you better be hope you're an owner.
Where did you get those numbers from? Just to clarify, for what were
Yeah,
those
so
numbers you were
this
reading?
these
What are
numbers
those?
are all from Sleeper. This is based on a full point PPR league. If you do a half a point PPR, then I'm sure the numbers would be a little lower, or no, the numbers would be a little higher, or maybe lower. I'm not sure to be honest,
Lower.
but yeah, that's what I thought. For a half a point PPR, positionally ranked, he was about 19, and for full point PPR, he was about 21 at the end of that season. right now he stands much lower at 29 and 27. So they aren't really good rankings. There's nothing proud to be of, but just because of his pedigree and just he's a beast. He's a natural athlete, and I, no matter what the situation is, this is only his second year in the National Football League, and he's a first. Like I said, his pedigree is a first rounder. There's so much more potential going forward. Um,
Okay. So you were
what are
looking
your
at their
thoughts, though?
yeah, so you were looking at the total you were looking at fantasy ranking. Is that what you were you talking about points scored? Is that what that 50 number was? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's from
Okay.
Sleeper. I'm
Okay.
sure some other
Okay.
platforms may have
I
them
just wanted to
different
make sure.
though.
No, I just wanted to make sure I knew what you were talking about because I didn't know if you were talking about like KTC value, but no, I didn't realize so his usage is pretty decent. It's just the problem that I'm seeing if you look at his statistics this year is that he's not the targets don't seem to be of quality. Um, for in week 4 he had 14 targets. Did you see that? I didn't even realize that.
I did. I
That's
mean,
absurd.
it is absurd. He's the only person. You know, you know. I mean, yes, in week 4 he did have 14 targets, but he was able to pull in about 9 receptions. So I mean, it's if you look at his natural abilities from just a professional, someone who enjoys the sport, and then seeing how he is able to apply that to analytics or fantasy, and how quick he's done it in such a short span of time being in this league, you really can't be upset. I mean, he came off with high value. He worked his way up with this really bad situation, and over the summer, it just grew. It skyrocketed because of the potential of the quarterback. Don't be wrong, I expect him to plummet and crash, and this is why I highly encourage anybody listening to buy him, because at this point, because I bought him early, I believe his value is continuing to hit a floor. Um, at the time I purchased them from you for Olave, and they're back. They're basically neck to neck still somehow. Both of them have plummeted, but even with everything he's done, he's been able to pull in a lot of receptions. A lot of these targets become receptions, and those become fantasy points for us. So that's
Yeah.
my position. What are your thoughts?
Uh, yeah, he's a good buy. I think if you had him on a team where you were hoping to contend and he's your wide receiver one, which is what I had hoped for. I was hoping for like a big year 2 bump and breakout. That maybe that's not. Maybe he's somebody you should have sold earlier in the season or right when before he crashed to the point where he's at now. But uh, yeah, he's definitely still a buy. Um, well, he's at wide receiver 8 prices. He's a buy, but he's not somebody that I would go out and spend. I wouldn't go out and spend crazy prices. I think there's guys in the same range of him that I'd rather have, although it gets pretty ugly. Um, it gets pretty murky in that middle tier section between guys that are either old on these rankings or guys that are their situation is unclear. Guys that we don't know if they're sustainable, like Puka Nakua is similar in value. Devontae Smith is hit or miss every single week. CeeDee Lamb is not getting the targets that we thought he would this year. So, yeah, if you are on a rebuilder and you want to bet that the Jets are going to have a better quarterback next year, then go out and buy him. I don't know what it says you can get him for. It's going to cost you still.
Yeah,
Um,
so I mean, like, just for those who are listening, get a sense. I mean, you can get them for like someone like Brees Hall, an early 24 first, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave. I mean, these are all nice name players. Um, you know, Overall, in like the whole grand scheme of it, I mean, if you can if you can bundle up some more reliable, maybe lesser known players of value and interest, I think you can take the gamble. I think it'd be a good investment because I do see him climbing back up, especially once if Aaron Rodgers is really intent on coming back, it's only a blessing for these receivers in New York. So I'm for it. I mean,
Quint,
to me, uh-huh.
Quentin Johnston at a mid to late 24 first. Are you paying that or is that too rich?
Quentin Johnson and a what?
A mid to late 24 first.
I think that's sufficient. I mean, that itself alone is a nice gamble as it is. 'Cause, we don't even know what is of Quentin Johnson either. So, but to stay on topic, I mean, Garrett Wilson, I love the upside, and that's what I'm gambling on. And to be frank, if you haven't considered him, I think this is a good opportunity too. I mean, I think it's better from here.
Zay Flowers in a first.
I would do that too.
Okay. So you really are convicted. Yeah. That's so as long as the first is mid to late, you could also capitalize on those guys maybe having inflated value to kind of meet, and that would not have gotten Garrett Wilson in the beginning of the season. So something to
Correct.
think about there. Or you could even package together. You could even go. I was going to say you could go down. You could even maybe go down off a CD Lamb if you're a rebuilder too to get to
Mm-hmm.
Wilson. Although they're pretty close in value as well. So yeah, I like
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson as a buy. I don't like the Jet situation this year, but again,
Mm-hmm.
we're playing Dynasty, so
Even someone like Stefan Diggs, let's say you're worried about his age, you could probably, go up. You could he's someone lesser, but he's consistently performing, so that's the only advantage he has, and maybe that'd be enough to get someone to accept. Again, it comes down to what the team is looking for, rebuild or competitor. If you're a competitor, I'd probably stay away from him. But if you're in a rebuild and you have a surplus of capita for draft picks, this is a good investment.
see if you can get him for a first and like a mid first and a second or something like that. Maybe it gets it done depending on how they're feeling. So, uh,
Exactly.
um, moving on to sells here. I am staying on the rookie train here, and I am going to suggest that you think about selling wide receiver of the Minnesota Vikings, Jordan Addison. Um, there's a couple reasons for this. Although I was high on Addison coming in, he was one of my favorite receivers in this draft. And so far, he's done relatively well. His value has now been inflated to the point where I think he might have hit sort of a peak. And there's a chance that he plummets if he doesn't meet expectations with the recent injury to Justin Jefferson. So he is on KTC is the wide receiver 14, which is pretty high. And I think that there's all kinds of guys that I would much prefer in the same range as a one for one swap. And there's also some guys that I think I would also kind of want to uh, tier down to as well. So, again, the reason I'm saying this is not because he hasn't done well, because if you look at his statistics, he's done really, really well for a rookie receiver. Um, has 3 touchdowns on the season already is already has 250 yards, so he's at a pace to eclipse that 750-yard range, which we kind of think is a good indicator for success to look at with rookie receivers. Um, Again, the problem that I see is he's been doing that while opposite of Justin Jefferson, so he has not been getting attention from the number one corner on the team. Now that that's going to change, is he, he's a young 6 game in the NFL player. Does he have the skill to continue to produce when he's the focus of attention by the defense? So before we start getting into some packages that I think might make sense for you to move off of Addison for, do you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts on Addison, and would you be selling if you had him?
Like we always say, sell while they're hot. It's the same mindset for many players. But I love it.
Okay. The again the what I'm looking for in terms of the what I would look to try to pivot to, if you look at the range that he's in, and again it depends on your team structure, but there's a couple guys in here that rebuild or contender that I think I would still rather have than him. For example, Ayuk, 25 years old, producing, has a good 5 years, 6 years, 7 years of production left. Probably has finally hit his peak. They're right similar value. I bet if you have a rebuilding team and that you offer Addison and a fourth, you could get it done. To give that asset to a contending team, or even if you're not contending. I would even tier down to a guy like I was looking a second ago at the rankings. I would tier down to a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba, because they've split. I mean, they're close still, but I think you could sell down to the JSN owner and get a third or a second on top as well if he continues to rise in value. And I think JSN is going to eventually break out because he was such a good prospect and has such high draft capital and investment. So, in terms of selling for picks as well, early first, he's gone for me. But if I could turn him into Marvin Harrison Jr., he's gone.
Mm.
I don't know that I think that might get it done. or even a mid first and an early to mid second, I might would consider it as well, depending on team structures. So just because I think he's kind of he's going to hit a plateau and maybe start heading the other direction in value. So anything else any thoughts on that or anything else you'd like to add about Addison?
I'm here for it. My only concern is Hawkinson. It's going to be hard to get in front of him, especially with Jefferson out of the picture for the next 4 games. If I had him right now, I'd be looking to try to get. If I could swindle somebody to give me a first, that'd be crazy.
Well, you'd get it first because he was a first round pick. But if you could get an early first, that's where it becomes, because I think that this class is probably so far. We always say this could be potentially better than the 23 class, and we don't know. But if you get an early first, and that early first, if you could, would become Drake May, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. If Michael Penix ends up there at quarterback, I don't know, he's rising.
Hmm.
That's something that you might want to consider as well. And the other
Oh,
thing is
for
his
sure.
quarterback situation is uncertain. Cousins is the subject of trade rumors right now. I don't know if you've heard them.
Well, that's
Um,
why I say that though about the first, because with the quarterback out, is their situation really going to get better?
yeah, it could get worse.
And
Jefferson
that's
is
gonna.
different. Not to get off of Addison, but Jefferson is a guy that'll produce regardless. I think no matter who he
I
has.
hope you're right.
Addison, we don't know. Dude, he's
I
shown
hope you're
enough.
right, dude.
He has shown enough.
But he's been playing under Kirk Cousins the whole time in the NFL. I know what he did in college, but who's really going to pick up the slack and actually get the ball in his hands? They're
So
struggling with the what?
if they end up with Kyler Murray, you don't think that he'll
Oh no,
produce?
no, that's different. That's different. But I mean,
Okay.
for the bridge, that's my concern,
Well, they
especially if it's in
could
the middle
tank
of the
this year.
season.
Well, if they sell
Yep.
Cousins, they're going to tank, which means they're probably going to draft a quarterback, or they're going to make a deal and trade him for another quarterback. Like maybe they send him, I don't know, maybe they swap him, and wouldn't make sense. But maybe the Cardinals trade Kyler Murray that way or something. But um, yeah, we don't know. But I think that Addison is a sell right now. Although I also wouldn't hate holding him to see if he rises a little bit more. But that's where you're taking a gamble,
Mm-hmm.
because if he doesn't perform this week or next week when we're expecting him to just explode, then he's going to fall a little bit. So that was
Well,
my
that's what
thought
I'm
process on
saying.
that.
I don't know. I know he's a first rounder, but it just hasn't done the value that we wanted to from a first rounder. But like all three of these wide receivers that went first, they all are in that same waters.
Four, if you don't forget about old
You're right,
Zay.
But Zay Flowers has done enough, in my opinion, to earn that first.
I mean, I guess Zay and him are close though. His if you look at Addison's production, it's been good. He's
Mm-hmm.
the I mean, he's a top. I mean, he's wide receiver 31, and that's only because he had that zero reception week week four.
Yep.
If he didn't, I think he would be good. I mean, he's eclipsed 50 yards in every game, um, and has some touchdowns. But again, I think the expectations are just high for him right now, and I think that that's something that you have to think about. So, all right, who's your sell here, so we can keep moving on here?
You've had enough talking.
No, no, no. I
Alrighty,
just want to
dude.
make sure we're not going on too long about one person. So go ahead.
Dude, you're good. I feel the same way when I hear my own voice. Um, I actually decided in the middle of this to change it up. So I know we talked about one, but I'm making my honorary mention. I'm actually going to do Sam Laporta. So I'm a proud owner of him in both my dynasty leagues. I'm not saying I'll do it just because of the predicament I'm in one of my leagues. It would probably take me a lot of thinking, but the high he's on is something that I would really encourage a lot of owners to consider, especially if you need something. Um, in the last 6 months, he's climbed over 4,000, you know, value in ADP according to Keep Trade Cut. He's tight end number one. He's a rookie from Iowa, and he's picked in the early second round. There wasn't really a lot to really be expected from him, but we did know that Jared Goff has an affinity for tight ends, as mirrored with him and TJ back when they were in Detroit together. He's doing it again with Sam Laporta, especially based off his value. It's impressive to see that he was able to climb in about the first 6 weeks of the season to tight end one and take over Kelsey, which, to be honest, I didn't even think was possible. But his values is off the chart. I mean, I know some of the games have been more larger for him and help make that value. And if you have him in a tight end premium league, he has so much potential. I like to ride these sort of highs and see how they go. But if you have them and you would like to break into some value, there's a lot of opportunity there. He's currently ranked right behind Puka Nakua, which is, at the time no one knew who he was either. But you could find yourself getting a player like Travis Kelsey if you wanted someone of value. You could even get someone even of greater value. I mean, he's at the same value. He's at the same value as Justin Fields, Puka Nakua, Brock Purdy, Chan. I think I said that right. Um, Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, Ayuk, even Stephon Diggs. I mean, you could push for Devontae Smith, even arguably Chris Olave, but then you're getting right next to, Garrett Wilson. Like, if you're given a deal for Garrett Wilson and Sam Laporta and maybe a fourth in there to kind of be the buffer, I mean, those are things that you can even consider now. Like, I mean, I'm very impressed with how fast he's climbed and how well he's maintained it. I mean, he's seen a large share of the targets and he's pulling them in enough to get points that are needed to win these games in fantasy.
If you could sell him for anybody, now depending on your team need and scoring, but if you could sell him for like I didn't realize he was up this high. I hadn't looked at this.
A
It'd be hard
quarterback.
if you can find someone that is just like uses KTC as like the Bible and will only trade with that, man, you could get something really good for him right
You
now.
can get that,
Um,
get Achan in an IR. That'd be nice.
yeah, you can you get HN plus? Where's he at? I don't even see him
No,
on
you
here.
can't get him plus, but you'd be one or the other because
Oh, they're right beside each other.
they're about
Yeah.
56
Oh,
thousand,
I see.
58,000 according to Keep Trade Cut. I mean, they're like neck to neck. Is literally maybe a buffer you'd have to throw in there, but still
If you're not in a tight end premium league or it's scoring where tight ends really matter, I'd be moving
trade him.
him for sure. If you could find proper value, even in a tight end premium, I'd be willing to tear off of him. But if you can go down to, I mean, I'll be honest with you, dude, I'd go down to Andrews, I'd go down to Hawkinson. Like I think that I know Laporta's a few years younger, but and he's defying odds for a rookie tight end. But man, it just feels like his value feels a little fragile just because he needs to do it for a longer period of time. Although
Hmm.
he is knocking it out. Don't get me wrong. It's hard not to consider putting him on the block, man, because I didn't
Hmm.
realize he was this high. Yeah, I think I totally agree with that one. You can get quarterbacks for him,
Well, let
dude.
me tell you this. I just put in a trade here for you, and it's similar, not the too perfect. You know how I am with these being a perfectionist, but you could send off Sam Laporta, and you could get back George Kittle and Quentin Johnson. I mean, those are fine assets to keep you going, and still have a tight end of value to stream. He's more than just stream; he's a starter. I mean, I know he's older in dynasty formats, but he has the value to keep you in a competitive structure. If you're rebuilding, he's a good investment. If you're competing, he's a great investment. I know his status for this weekend is up in the air, but regardless, looking at what he's done in the first five, I know last weekend was he got a hat trick of touchdowns, but still, it's enough.
I mean, yeah, if you could get like a
Sorry, the
no,
weekend
you're
before, I
good.
think
If
it
you
was a
could get
couple
like
weekends ago.
a first and I mean, man, I need to look at the tight end rankings. Like if I could tear down and get a first and let me look at the way that tight end is actually being ranked right now. So if you could look at and get a first on top of I would ask you a first on top of Luke Musgrave because that's an offer that you actually have, but it doesn't seem like that would get it done for you. So how about a
But that's but that's.
how about a second and Andrews? Does that get it done?
I feel like
Regardless if you're a rebuilder or not
Andrews
or a
himself
contender.
already has the value. That itself would be, I think, more than adequate. 'Cause regardless what happens, let's say Sam Laporte doesn't play this weekend, his stock will take a dip, but it's going to climb right back up as soon as he plays again because it's clear it's just him and Amron, and unless Williams does something, it's he's literally wide receiver. He's like the receiver number two on the the team, and you only know what that means at such a young age.
I think you wouldn't swap him for what would you tear down to at tight end
No, no, I mean that offer you
as
said
a
earlier with Andrews in a second would be more than sufficient to get that done.
man.
Um,
I can't
yeah,
believe that.
but that's what's crazy about it. I mean, his value is off the chart. I mean, like I'm impressed where how high he is. I mean, what is it? If I look at the whole dynasty ranking, he's the 28th most valuable player in all of dynasty. And I was just talking about Garrett Wilson being a buy, who's the 18th. Sorry, not 18th, 22nd. And they're only separated by 6 rankings apart, and that's how close they are. But if you look at the beginning of the season, they were nowhere close in value.
No, I mean Laporta, he's a second round pick, right? You drafted him second where you got him? Second
Yep,
round somewhere?
second pick of the
Rookie
second round.
pick.
I was looking at Michael Mayers and I wanted him, but he went before, and I'm grateful that he did because I made the best decision of my damn life.
Yeah, he's better than I mean, he's not rookie tight ends just aren't really supposed to be doing what he's doing, and his usage is really, really good. I don't know, man, something to think about there. If you decide if you end up putting him on the block, I'd be interested to see what kind of offers came your way because you would either get people clamoring and paying up, or you would get people that see right through it and say, "No, I'm not paying at this peak." So it'd be interesting to see what actually would happen if you
Well,
decided to put.
we'll give you a real scenario. So like right now I have on the table, I got a proposal from a league mate of ours, for Musgrave, a 25 first and a 24 fourth. And again, like for me, if I it's a nice value. He's paying well over, but I would rather have a 24 first than a 25 first. But obviously when you put the 24 first, it alters the value tremendously, and you're looking from what would have been maybe paying a third over to now paying close to a second over. So
Do you trade him for a 24 first straight up if it's projected mid to high? That's hard.
without the fourth, yeah. I mean,
No, I'm
even
just saying
without
in
the
general, would
fourth,
you trade him? No, without Musgrave and the fourth. Would you sell him for a mid to high 24 first straight up?
does 24 fourth alone,
First.
but
A
a
mid to high
24.
24 first. Like if one's projected top six, are you
So
selling
like if we
Laporta for that
knew,
pick?
let's say it's later in the season and we knew,
Yeah.
because it's hard to know. I mean, let's say if we knew it wasn't early, of
Projected.
course, let's say I wasn't early and we knew, then we would. But the thing is, with Laporta, selling him to a team doesn't guarantee that it would be an early first because that team can now become competitive, and that's the thing
Mhm.
that all owners need to think about being so early in the season. Maybe near the
Yeah.
end of the season and his value's still here, I would definitely do that. But you would need to make sure that you're getting yourself an early first.
Hypothetically, though, let's just say we
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a tool
yes,
that'll tell us if it's top six. If you know it'll be top six, are you selling him for top six?
of course.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to get your heat check on him, how high you were actually willing to go on him. So, um, very interesting. I think this was a good show. We had some hot names on here, three rookies, and a second year player. So lots of young, exciting dynasty assets here. We're gonna do some more buy sells a later point in the season as well. We'll try to rack up some more trades for another trade show coming up because I know a couple have been made since our last one. And again, I'm still kind of hoping for that group podcast or kind of getting some extra folks on here to chat it up with us. But um, as always, did you say you had any other honorable mentions before we get out of here? You wanted to
I
throw out?
do. I
Go
have
ahead.
one last one, and that's Zach Moss. And the only reason why I'm bringing up Zach Moss is because he's
As a
produced
sell.
numbers as a sell, correct? As a sell, is because he's produced numbers that no one's seen. And yes, his value is probably that of a second round pick. However, in my honest opinion, even if it was a mid 2024 pick or a late 2025, whatever it is, um, he has an upside that no one really understands. And regardless of what happens at the end of the year, I don't see him staying in Indiana. I see him going somewhere, maybe being a bridge running back for some time. He's a little older, 20, about to be 26 soon, but still, he's almost run to 100 yards during these last four games he's played out of the four that he could play in. And we all thought he wasn't going to come back from that broken arm over the preseason. But whatever happened, whoever his doctor is, everybody needs to see him too because he's all he's healthy, he's bulked up, he's a beast, and he's utilized what he's had in this system there. And I've been very very impressed. In fact, recently I was able to send him off and a second round for the 2024 draft for Damian Pearson, 2024 2026 fourth. So I mean, you can trade up for him because people are going to see value in the explosiveness of his play. Because last week he went off for 40 points and no one ever thought he could do that. I mean, he hadn't done that back when he was on the Buffalo Bills. So my
Yeah,
position is sell. Yeah.
yeah, I think so too because Jonathan Taylor didn't get paid to be the backup, so he'll go somewhere maybe, but we don't know that, and I think we don't know that anyone's going to be willing to, even with these performances, give him the same amount of work that he was getting because he's getting an insane workload. My honorable mention buy, and maybe it's not the smartest buy because his value has risen a little bit, but I think it has the potential to rise even higher. That's Josh Downs, wide receiver for the Colts.
I
His
like
usage
that.
has been really good. He's clearly overtaken Alec Pierce as the second option on that team. They haven't been using their tight ends. We have at least a month of Gardner Minshew, RIP, for a period of time. Anthony Richardson, he'll be back.
Hmm.
Wait for him. But the uh, the usage has been really good, and I think that he is on a path to continue to increase in value because again, he wasn't a super high rookie draft pick to begin with. So he's got good draft capital. Was a third round receiver. Has good college tape out of North Carolina. So
Hmm.
Josh Downs is a guy I think that you need to keep your eye on, and a guy that I would be throwing if you could random seconds at. I might take random seconds and a third. I probably would make that gamble in a team where you're trying to be young and take shots on young upside guys. So this was a good show, dude. Thanks for chatting it up with me. Everybody, thanks for the support and checking us out. Again, any kind of interaction is great. If we're on YouTube, give me a like, subscribe. We're pumping these things out weekly. And if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, same kind of things. Like the podcast, follow it. And again, I appreciate it. So, Marty, thanks for coming on, buddy. It's always fun chatting with you, and we'll see you on the next one.
Sounds good, dude. Deuces.
All right. Take care, everybody.